back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Oh, we had a heck of a Saturday yesterday, didn't we?
That was pretty nuts. Every week gets crazier and crazier.
So we didn't really think there'd be too much upsets going on this week. We didn't really think a whole lot would be going on.
Actually, you probably did, just because it happens every week anyway.
But especially in the early games. The early games are what surprised me the most.
Yeah, you're right.
Because let's talk about Florida first. And then after we talk about the games yesterday, we'll go into the AP. AP came out this morning, or 1 o'clock, whatever. So Florida played Florida Atlantic. I mean, nobody had this game on the radar, except for Florida Atlantic.
They're 2-8, but...
They're 2-8, going to Florida. They're playing in the swamp. And I tell you what, I watched this game, and I never watched SEC. I hate the SEC. They get a lot of love, and I think Florida is going to get zero love from the playoff committee after this week, and they might drop 2 or 3 spots, if not more, because Florida Atlantic took it to them. Jim McElwain, post-game conference, he said that his team, he's like, you know when you go to the fish market and you see the fish on the ice? Because that was our players. They were dead fish on ice.
That's what he said.
That's what he called it. He compared his team to dead fish on ice. They're just laying there dead. He said he goes, one guy gets down, he brings the rest of the team down, they're just moping on the sidelines. That's a problem.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that, man. It was awesome that I was so excited when this game went to overtime, and then Florida scored right away, and I was like, damn it. But then they blocked the extra point, and I got so happy, thinking, what is going to happen when Florida Atlantic wins this game? Is Florida going to drop out of the top 25? Is that just absolutely going to destroy the SEC? But then they had first and goal at the 9.
Yeah, and they should have won the game. I'll tell you what, Florida Atlantic had the best opportunity to win that game. 2 really good passes in the end zone by the quarterback, which their offense was pretty all game, but Florida sucked too. 2 pass interference calls that they did not make in the end zone. One, the guy did not turn his head. The other one, he was pulling on his shoulder pad. Very clear to me that was pass interference, and the refs were right there. They didn't call anything, and the commentators were like, oh, they're letting them play. You can't let them play in that situation, because in that situation, you're letting Florida win the game.
Yeah.
Now, not to say that right then and there the game's over and they're going to score and kick the extra point, but at least gives them the opportunity to do so. I think the refs screwed over Florida Atlantic in that game.
Well, and it's all with the college football playoff rankings, Florida being so high. They need to be high for Alabama's sake and everything. It just kind of drives me nuts.
And I think, and we'll talk about my playoff or our playoff picture poll. We both have them at 12. Coming in on Tuesday, we think they're going to drop 4 spots, and I think it's very well deserving. So,
and I think Florida State's going to beat them next week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think they're going to lose next week too, and we'll go over that.
Yeah, we'll get
next
there
week's
later,
game.
but...
So, North Carolina also went to OT, and they go into Virginia Tech. Frank Beamer's last game
in Blacksburg. Last game.
Blacksburg's a tough place to play. Even when Virginia Tech is not a good team, it's a tough place to play. So. North Carolina goes in there with a 9-1 record. They're looking to try to move up in the poll still. They got Clemson in the ACC championship game.
It's already a lock. Now with that win, it's a lock.
With the win, it's a lock. So North Carolina goes in there and they take them to OT. Now Virginia Tech played very well all game. Very solid. North Carolina's, we've talked about them all year. We've talked them up, say, hey, they should be higher, they should be higher. I still think they should be higher.
I don't think they're going to see.
They're not a very powerful team, offensively or defensively.
I haven't watched much of them. I just think that at this point in time, being in a Power 5 conference and having a record with only 1 loss or 0 losses like Iowa does,
it helps them.
That you should be up there. I mean, at least in the top 10 consideration for a playoff spot, as opposed to all these teams with 2 losses.
Yeah, especially when you're going to a championship game in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
Now the ACC is.
It's actually the ACC is better this year than I thought. Than they have been in the last couple years.
The SEC, that's for sure.
It might be actually, and I mean that.
So Vatek, it was a good game. They got a field goal, and North Carolina ended up getting the touchdown. It was a good game. Congrats, North Carolina. They're 10-1.
And I mean, we're not really big on Virginia Tech necessarily, but Frank Beamer last home game.
They carried him off the field.
Yeah, I know that they wanted to win for him, and so they were probably playing their hearts out. And so North Carolina getting a win, I guess, was pretty.
That was a good win
for them. Yeah.
Good win at Virginia Tech. Iowa State's undefeated, so they played Purdue. And they struggled most of the game. Iowa struggled, especially in the first half. Second half, quarterback, he played better. They ran the ball better. Their defense played better in the second half. They ended up winning by 20. Was it 40-20? I think
40-20. It was. They went up early.
Mm-hmm.
It was like
20-0.
It was 20-0, and then before you know it, it was like 20-13, and I was like, oh man, I didn't see Purdue having much of a shot, but the 40-20 looks pretty decent.
Yeah.
It might not have been the prettiest game that they've had,
but their second half was pretty deciding. I mean, they held them to a field goal, I think, in the second half, and they looked really good. Or one touchdown maybe. So Iowa looked really good in the second half. They played well. 20-point victory is going to look good on their resume. Purdue, not a good team, but hey, they beat Nebraska. But I think Iowa's still undefeated in a Power 5 conference in the Big Ten. I think that's going to look really good for them. Michigan wins over Penn State 28-16.
I watched quite a bit of that game. It was a pretty good game.
Yeah.
Penn State's not bad. They're really not. And it was 21-13, and they were going in to score.
Yeah.
And they got stopped or whatever, kicked a field goal. So it was 21-16, and I think they got the ball back. They had a shot.
Yep.
Michigan ended up holding them and then scored another touchdown. But it was a good game.
Yeah, very good game. Michigan, they go in, they play Ohio State next week. Anything can happen, so we'll talk about that game.
They still have a shot at making the Big Ten championship. Yeah. A lot of different things need to happen, but they still have a shot.
Michigan's quarterback is a Rudock. Yeah, I watched him yesterday, man. He's got a lot of development to work on, but he's not a bad quarterback.
Was he an Iowa transfer?
I think so, yeah.
I think.
Maybe. Fact check that. Somebody fact check it. But
Jason will know.
Pooty, you fact check me all the time, so... Yeah. Either way, Michigan wins 28-16. It's a good win for them going into their last game of the season against Ohio State next week. Big Ten matchup. We'll see what happens next week. So Temple beat Memphis. Memphis gets another loss on the season. They were at 21. They're probably out of the top 25 now. The Owls needed that win.
I feel like they just kept Memphis in those rankings because they beat Ole Miss and Ole Miss beat Alabama. I mean, I'm not hating on them. I think that they're decent. I mean, who knows what would happen if Nebraska played them.
They're on 2 losses now. So
yeah, I agreed. But
they still had a good season, but still a good win for Temple over Memphis. I mean, that conference is... They had a good year. That conference is looking really good.
Unfortunately for that conference, they've all beat each other up, kind of. I beat you, but you beat him, and he beats me. So that is a decent conference.
Yeah. So
for being a non-Power 5.
We'll talk about the biggest game yesterday in a second. We're gonna skip that one for now. Houston lost their first game to a 5-5 UConn yesterday. Man, UConn, they played really well against Houston.
I was kind of sad about this loss for Houston.
We're both kind of sad
because I liked Houston undefeated as like a dark horse for maybe sliding in there. But also I wanted them to be undefeated playing against Navy this week.
Yeah.
Pretty big matchup there, which still probably is a decent matchup because I think they might be in the same division.
Yeah, they play each other next week.
Winner of that game will go to their conference championship.
And Navy looked really good this week. They played really well. I think they won by like 23 points or something. They destroyed.
I heard an interview with their coach during the week, and I like the coach. Yeah. And I kind of like Navy. I like Navy. So
they're fun to watch.
Yeah.
So Houston, first loss. Oregon destroyed USC.
Yeah.
By 20. 48-28.
Every time I looked, they were scoring another touchdown. 6 touchdown passes?
Yep. All up top, man. They just kept throwing the ball. And it's funny. I ran into Jason at the gas station this morning. And I ran into him, and he's wearing all his USC stuff. And I'm like, man, what the hell happened to your team yesterday? And he goes, they just kept throwing on us. We couldn't do anything about it. It kind of makes you think about Nebraska. But so USC loses, and USC had a chance to go to the Pac-12 championship game. They had to win that game, and they had to win next week. But now they're out the Pac-12 championship because they lost. I don't think they have a chance.
Did Stanford lock up the?
Stanford locked it up. Yeah, they locked it up. But good win for Oregon. Oregon still has a shot.
Who's in the other side of the? I don't know. Who's going to the in the south?
Stanford's north, south.
We'll have to look into it because all those. It seems like a lot of those.
The Pac-12 has just beat the crap out of each other this year. So UCLA actually might. UCLA beat Utah yesterday.
That's true.
UCLA actually might be going to the Pac-12 championship. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that.
So UCLA had a good win. Utah was number 13. They lost, so that.
They didn't score a touchdown, did they?
No, they look terrible. Booker's out for the season.
And they were at home.
Yeah, but they don't have Booker.
Oh, that's right.
He's not in the game. But UCLA is a good team. Quarterback's good. Rosen. He looked really good yesterday. UCLA goes in. They beat Utah at Utah. Good win for them. LSU lost their 3rd game in a row.
They looked pretty bad, man.
They looked really bad.
You watched part of that game.
Ole Miss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this looked good for Ole Miss, but at the same time, you got an LSU team who's now lost 3 in a row. How good is that for Ole Miss? Not really, because LSU, Fournette gets stopped again.
Fournette got hurt. They did a wildcat at the goal line, and he fumbled.
You know, I feel bad for the guy.
I feel bad for him,
really
too.
wanted him to go to the Heisman race this year because he had a hell of a good year up until Alabama. And then
it was just yeah.
And now they're talking about Les Miles being on the hot seat. I don't know why, because LSU's been good for how many years with him as their coach, but you know, now you lose 3 games in a row.
I mean,
is he really on the hot seat, or is it just contracts coming up? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. But even Tom Osborne had a lot of good seasons, but there were some seasons when it wasn't beautiful, and there was, you know, maybe not 3 losses in a row, but
but that doesn't look good for them. But
no, it doesn't. But it also, with LSU, probably out of the rankings, I would imagine.
They were 17, I think, in the college football playoff poll.
They've got to be out.
I think they would too, but who knows?
Maybe they'll hang them at like 23, 24, 25.
For Alabama's sake.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that in a second. So Clemson cruised over their win. No surprise there. Clemson's
Wake Forest.
They're going to win next week. They looked really good. Deshaun Watson, he, in my mind, top runner for the Heisman right now. No doubt in my mind. I think he should be.
I don't know if I'd put him at number 1, but
a lot of people have Henry up there. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. Notre Dame squeaks by 19-16. Now Notre Dame, that was a tough environment to play in. So Notre Dame was a home team. They're playing at Fenway in Boston, playing Boston College, but Notre Dame was the home team.
And
last year they played in Indianapolis, and Boston College was, or whatever that Shamrock Series was. They were the away team in Indianapolis. So
both teams were on the same sideline.
I don't know.
Both teams were on the same sideline.
No shit.
Yeah, because of the way that
I watched a lot of the game. I guess I didn't really pay attention.
I didn't see any of it because it was on NBC Sports Network, and
But it's kind of cool. That game was fun to watch. I watched a good amount, and as far as the stadium series goes, that was really cool because I think that's probably one of the best stadiums to play a college football game in because I don't think there's a bad seat in the house because everyone's so close to the field.
It was better than when they played at Wrigley and both teams had to go the same direction.
Yeah.
Because the goal line literally was the wall.
Yeah.
And I think, that was a couple years ago, but I think somebody got a pick 6 and literally just touched the wall. But Fenway was a little bit better.
So that was pretty cool. Notre Dame gets a win. They're at 10-1. One more game next week, Stanford. We'll talk about that in a second.
Good. So 19-16 with Boston College scoring a late touchdown. But Notre Dame had 5 turnovers in the red zone, 3 of which were inside.
No. 5 turnovers, 3 in the red zone.
I thought it was 3 inside the 5-yard line.
3 in the red zone. But I think 2 of those were inside the 10 for sure.
Okay.
One of them interception. I mean, Kaiser had his worst game yesterday. And to me, if I was a Notre Dame fan, I'm happy with yesterday because they won, and I'm also happy because they got rid of their worst game all season was yesterday.
That's probably a good opponent to have your worst game.
Yeah.
Because Boston College was.
If you do that against Stanford, you have 5 turnovers. That's 35 points. Yeah. I can't do math. Yeah, that's 35 points. I got my math right. That's potentially 21 to 35 points that Stanford's going to score off of turnovers. I mean, Kaiser, he's going to have a better game next week. I think they're going to come prepared. We'll talk about the game in a little bit, but Notre Dame, Stanford, last game of the season, that's going to be a big one. That's going to be a big decider on the future of
that's going to be a good game.
Baylor beats Oklahoma State by 10 points.
And it was not that close from what I watched.
No, it was not. Baylor destroyed
and this makes me so sad because I wanted Oklahoma State to be undefeated and I wanted Oklahoma to have 1 loss, then play each other next week. That really hurt the Big 12 right there.
That did, because if you ask me, neither of those teams, Baylor or Oklahoma State's going to make the playoff now. I don't think either one of them should have a shot.
And I don't know, man. The Big 12, I think, is going to be outside looking in on the playoff again.
So Big 12, the other game was Oklahoma against TCU. Now, TCU's ranked 18. The only reason why is they dropped so far because they barely beat Kansas by 6.
Because they lost Boykin and Dotson or whatever his name is.
And during that game, they lost their backup QB. They were playing a third-string QB. Mm-hmm. And Oklahoma was still struggling with them. They had a late surge in that fourth quarter. TCU,
I kind of tuned out of it because Oklahoma was kind of tearing them up.
No, I switched games. I stopped watching that game, and then I was texting my brother Andrew, and he's like, "Hey, that game's not over yet. And I'm like, holy crap, turn it back. And they were making a run. And I was like, holy
Well, you
shit.
text me and said, OSU loses, OU wins. And then, like, a few minutes later, I was like, it's 20-13, and TCU has the ball.
Yeah.
And then I watched it and watched the end of the game.
Why do you go for a 2-point conversion? I understand TCU.
Well,
your season's over. You're not going to the. But you can
Actually,
ruin Oklahoma's
they
season.
only had one loss. They could still have won the Big 12.
They could have. So they go for a 2-point conversion. I mean, what an idiot!
Baker
What an
Mayfield gets hurt
idiot.
for Oklahoma, and then they kind of got shut down.
Yeah.
And TCU was moving. I mean, when I watched the end, they were moving pretty easily.
Their third string quarterback was not that bad. Was it Johnson?
I couldn't tell you what his name was.
Johnson.
But
Keep going.
they were
keep going
moving.
the ball.
They were moving pretty easily on them, and then they score, and I see guys lining up, and both of us are like, "What the hell's going on? What is going on?
What is this?"
And the guy was wide open on that 2-point conversion. If they would have got it, they would have looked pretty smart. But when you have two guys running the quarterback's phase,
reason.
I agree. I thought the way they were moving the ball, I thought if they went to overtime that they would have beat them.
Yeah, they had all the momentum going forward. They had all the momentum. If they went to overtime, I think they got locked up, especially with Mayfield out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'll talk about him a little bit when we talk about the Heisman, but Baker Mayfield, to me, they were making a big deal about him shaking and baking, and Chris Spielman was on that game, and Spielman, I haven't even mentioned him this year, he drives me nuts. He's an idiot. He's not going to make a comparison to Peyton Manning, but Peyton Manning shuffles his feet, and so does Baker Mayfield. Like, that's comparison. You're comparing the two
Doesn't make
quarterbacks.
sense.
But he said that he, shakes and bakes around people. TCU couldn't tackle him. They were bumping him. They weren't wrapping him up. So yeah, you can't tackle the guy. Compare him to Johnny Manziel. Baker Mayfield is not a bad quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but he is no Manziel when it comes to running out of the pocket, and he is no Peyton Manning when he shuffles his feet and moves out of the pocket. That's for sure.
Well, my thing was what I've heard and read today is teams talking about Oklahoma potentially being in the top 4 this week in the committee rankings. I mean, TCU was giving up like 500 yards a game. And I'm not sure how many yards Oklahoma got, but if they only scored 20 points, I can't imagine they got that many.
They gave up a lot of yards. They gave up more yards than they got.
Well, and just with how could you move them all the way up when they won by 1 point?
Not only that, they lost to Texas. We said it last week. We said it on Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. They lost to Texas. You cannot.
I agree with you.
Can't.
But
Drives me
we
nuts.
talked about this. I did see Kirk Herbstreit tweet out his top 4.
Herbstreit's an idiot. I'm surprised Ohio State's still not in there.
I know.
I mean, seriously.
I'm not saying that he's a genius by any means. I was just giving you the facts of what he tweeted out as his top 4. Not that that means anything at all. He's not on the committee or anything. But he had Clemson, Alabama, Michigan State, and Oklahoma. It's unbelievable. There's no way that it could be that.
And there's no way Michigan State jumps in. So Herbstreit's an idiot, for one.
I did say Michigan State has the best win out of anybody this season.
They do, by far. So, one more notable game, or we're talking about 2 more games. Stanford wins yesterday. They won not big, but they looked good in their win.
And McCaffrey looked good.
McCaffrey, dude,
He's
seriously.
awesome.
Number 1, in my mind, number 2 in the Heisman race right now, behind Deshaun Watson. McCaffrey, Watson, Henry are my 3 Heisman runners. They're the only 3 I think should go to New York right now because they're the only 3 consistent players week after week after week.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that have played as well as they have every single week this season.
And we have one more game to talk about, but somebody that was consistent every week that was not this week.
Let's just talk about it. Ezekiel Elliott.
Ezekiel Elliott had
State.
15 straight games of 100 yards or more, and he had 12 carries for 33 yards.
Uh-huh.
And afterwards, you posted it on the page, didn't you?
It's on our Facebook page. So he posted
afterwards,
bitching about not getting enough carries.
Basically called out the coaches. The loss was on the coaches for play calling. And
sorry, you got Tim Beck. You're welcome.
Yeah, you guys can keep him.
Keep him.
And then he said he's going pro. Jones?
So here's my thing. So you got a Michigan State that loses to, at the time, 3-6 Nebraska.
Okay.
Or we're 4-6.
That made us 4-6.
That made us 4-6. So we're 3-6 at the time. We beat Michigan State. Not one player from that team that they interviewed bitched and moaned and complained about play calling and yada yada and the play. No, and they didn't complain about the refs. They said Nebraska, they beat us. If we were truly the better team today, we would have beat them.
We wouldn't have been in a position where they could have made a play,
including D'Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't hear Urban Meyer after the game yesterday, but all I know is Ezekiel Elliott is complaining about the play calling, and he said straight up, if I would have got the ball more, we probably would have won the game. Dude, you had 12 carries for 33 yards. Michigan State
less
defense,
than 3 yards a carry.
That game was not as close as it should have been. The weather had a huge effect on the game.
Yeah, that's
Michigan
true.
State's defense is the best they've played all year against an offense that is, they rely on the long pass.
Yeah, well,
they couldn't throw the ball.
They couldn't throw the ball, but, I mean, and I don't know, maybe the weather was that big of a factor, but when Nebraska played Michigan State, we threw all over them. I looked at the stats after the game.
Yeah.
They had 132 total yards. They had 46 passing yards and like 84 rushing yards or whatever. And I looked it up. Tommy Armstrong threw for like 350 yards.
Yeah.
When we played.
So I'm sure the weather wasn't a factor.
320.
Now,
because we had 499 yards.
I will agree the play calling was terrible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Every play was either a handoff to Elliott up the middle for a yard or two, or JT Barrett would roll out like he was going to pass, and he would run for 2 yards.
Dude, there was one possession, 3 plays in a row they did a QB read, and then they did it on 3rd and 3, and they stopped him, and the crowd was booing. If you're getting booed by the entire crowd of Ohio State, you're making mistakes from play calling. How do you do 3 QB reads in a row? Michigan State stopping Barrett. Barrett could not run.
I know.
Now, I don't think putting in Jones would have made a difference. I personally
don't know. I probably agree with you, but they couldn't throw the ball, and Cardale Jones can throw the ball. I know he throws interceptions, but he can throw the ball pretty well. But the thing about this game is the one drive offensively that Ohio State had was in the first half. Elliott, that's where he had like 28 of his 33 yards.
Yeah.
They handed it to him 8 times in a row.
Yeah.
And
9. He had 9 rushes. 9 plays.
And
they gave it to him something like that. 8 times.
8 times.
Yeah.
And he ended up scoring a touchdown, but I think they went for it on fourth and goal at the 1 because they couldn't move on him. So he gets all of his yards there. The only other touchdown they scored was because, I'm not sure why, Michigan State guy tried to catch that ball and muffed the punt. And
you should never try to catch a ball, especially in the rain, over here like this.
Yeah.
That was dumb.
And so they got the ball inside the 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
That was the only offense they had. And that was because they got the ball at 10. And the other drive, they got the ball, I think, on Michigan State's side of the field. So they didn't do anything. It was pretty boring to watch.
And their punter had a 5-yard net punt,
5-yard
which
punt.
was hilarious. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen in college football. He hits a defender who doesn't even see the ball coming, but he's on the other side of the line of scrimmage, so it counts as a block, not as, oh, holy crap, we can pick up the ball, it's ours. And then it hits off his own guy, and it's a net punt of 5 yards. I mean, that was just hilarious, because once it touched his player, it's dead. And that cracks me up. So 5-yard punt, that was funny. But here's the thing with Ohio State. We haven't talked a whole lot of crap about them all year.
Well, you kind of have.
A little bit.
You've just been like...
But
they had another crappy win, another bad win against a shitty team.
And they've had a lot of crappy wins. But the thing with them is, who have they played? They have one game the entire year against a team that's been in the top 25 all year, and that is Michigan State. This weekend was the first game they played against a team in the top 25.
That has been ranked at any point.
At any point in time, this entire season. Minnesota was their only other toughest matchup besides Michigan State.
And that was, at that time, Minnesota was decent.
Yeah, so you have a team that is only up there because they won the championship last year and they hadn't lost a game. They had 23 straight wins. So does that tell you that they're not that good? Does it say that maybe they are that good, but they had a lot of crappy wins this season? They have struggled big time. Is it a quarterback thing? Because Cordell Jones is now saying, I'm going to the NFL. But he's throwing more interceptions than he has touchdowns this year. Who's going to draft him?
That's what I said.
Who's going to take him? Ezekiel Elliott will go. He's good.
Ezekiel will go, Braxton Miller will go.
And Miller will go.
For sure.
Barrett's going to be a senior next year. Barrett's going to be the starter.
Barrett's going to be a senior with none of his playmakers.
He's going to be the starter.
Everybody's going to be gone.
That's why Jones is leaving. He's like, screw it, I ain't going to start next year.
That's true.
That's why he's going to go.
And he would maybe not even get a shot. Unless Barrett got hurt or really sucked.
Yeah. So So Ohio State loses.
I don't know if he'll get drafted. He might sign a free agency contract with somebody.
Should go to the tight end. He's a big dude.
I don't know if he can run that well, but...
Yeah, I don't know. So let's take a look at our AP. So the AP came out today. So we had Clemson, Alabama, Iowa, Notre Dame. Those are your top 4 in the AP. Now, I'm not too surprised by that. We'll talk about college football playoff in a second and what I think, but I'm not too surprised by the top 4. I think those 4 teams will be in the top 4. I think your mix-up might be a little bit different. Now, Alabama, what Saban all week was like, no, people are giving us crap about playing Charleston Southern. They're not a bad team. They think we're playing a slack team, yada, yada. The NCAA should no longer, with the college football playoff poll, should no longer allow a team, any conference, to play an FCS team that late in the season. It should not be allowed anymore because how does that look good on your schedule? You won 56-6. How does that look good? You play Charleston Southern.
And we were talking about this because, I mean, is it like bad or is it like genius on the SEC's part that they play these games at this point in time? Because if you're a team like Baylor that plays an FCS team at the beginning of the season and you kill them and you just put 70 points up on them, everybody's like, who have you played? You haven't played anybody. Whereas in the SEC, you play your conference schedule a week earlier, and then you're like, everybody's like, oh well, they've been playing teams. They beat teams. They've been playing teams, and then you play the same opponent that somebody else did at the beginning of the season, and they're like, oh well, they've already won games, so this is just whatever. As opposed to, oh, they have a week's schedule because they're non-conference.
Well, and like I mentioned yesterday, at the end of the season, you want to be your best, playing some of the best.
Agreed.
So I think you can look at it either way. I don't know how the college football playoff guys look at it.
I mean, it would be kind of nice to, before one of your biggest games, if not your biggest game, you're playing an opponent where you can have your guys get in there and mop them up pretty quick and then rest. Bring in your backups or whatever and have your guys rest up for the next week. But I don't know. The way that I was in sports was like, you get on a roll. Like, you play, when I was playing hockey, like you play your state to go to, you have to win that to go to regionals. Mm-hmm. You go to regionals, you have to win that to go to nationals. Okay? We were playing like consistently good teams, and you get on a roll. If we would have played somebody bad, you kind of lull yourself to sleep a little bit before a big opponent. I don't know that I would like do that.
But they don't have a big opponent next week, so
they play Auburn next week, which is a rivalry game.
Mm-hmm. Auburn's terrible this year.
Oklahoma lost to Texas, and Texas is terrible this year. I don't think
they'll lose, but it could happen. You just never know. They could have a 103-yard field goal return,
109-yard missed field goal return.
You never know. So, I don't think moving forward, I don't think the NCAA should allow that late of a scheduled game against an FCS opponent.
Well,
and we talked about Bielema's suggestion of Big Ten, SEC.
I like that.
I think it's a great suggestion because that takes out that FCS opponent for all teams of the Big Ten and the SEC. Makes your opponents look stronger.
Did the Big Ten ban games against Big Ten teams to play FCS teams?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I thought I heard something like that this week. I know that. I mean, I certainly hope Nebraska doesn't play any FCS teams anytime in the near future. Not taking anything away from FCS teams. I know that those teams get like $1 million to come to Nebraska for Nebraska to beat them by 50 points, and that's what keeps their program alive. Yeah. So I mean, it's cool that that's how it works, but those games are either you beat them by 60 points and everybody's like, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, or it's a close game. Or you lose to the Citadel.
Like South Carolina. South Carolina lost to the Citadel. Holy crap. And the coach afterwards is like, people need to start realizing that the Citadel, we're for real. We're for real. We're not just
We're the real
team.
South Carolina champs.
Give
us Clemson.
He was pissed. He's like, we're the Citadel. You got to realize that we're not a bad football team. People talk crap all the time, but we're really good. I'm like, no, you're not. You just beat a really crappy South Carolina.
And that hurts North Carolina a little bit too, because North Carolina lost.
Yeah, it does, and it might hurt them. So, all right. So, moving forward, we'll talk about our games next week in a second. Let's talk about college football playoffs. So, here's what I think is going to happen. It's my opinion. Clemson stays number 1. Alabama stays at number 2. I think you're going to have Notre Dame at number 3, and I think you're going to have Iowa number 4. I think each team moves up 1, which I think is fair. I still think Notre Dame, their 1 loss to Clemson, is a big deal with the playoff committee. And Notre Dame playing Stanford, their last game of the year, is going to be the decider for Notre Dame. If they have a bad game against Stanford, they could get jumped. Who could jump them? Who could jump them? Oklahoma should not be able to, but I think Oklahoma's going to be 5. Michigan State, if they go on to the Big Ten Championship and win it, Michigan State, I think, could jump Notre Dame if Notre Dame, well, they will jump them if they lose to Stanford. If they don't lose to Stanford, Michigan State has, to me, the best opportunity to jump Notre Dame. I don't think it should happen, though. So those are my top 6. I think Oklahoma, Michigan State come in 5 and 6.
If Michigan State wins next week, they are in the Big Ten Championship against,
which they play Penn State, and they will.
Against Iowa, who already locked up the West, and whether or not they... It would probably be better for Michigan State if Iowa were to beat Nebraska, because then that game is essentially a play-in game to the playoff between Michigan State and Iowa, in my opinion. The only thing I'm gonna change on your little rankings there, Jason, I know you'll like this. I'm actually gonna put Clemson 1, Alabama 2. I am gonna put Iowa at number 3 ahead of Notre Dame at number 4, and the reason I'm going to do that is because this point in time in the season, they're still undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Notre Dame had a 2-point loss to number 1 Clemson, but we're 11 games into the season now. I know Iowa hasn't had pretty wins every week, but neither has Notre Dame.
And neither has Alabama or Clemson or Oklahoma or any other teams.
But no, I texted you last night.
Who's been consistent?
I'm like, is there anybody that has legitimately been consistent all year to the point where you can be like, this team is a playoff team, they're the most consistent? I know that
the answer is no.
Maybe Clemson.
They've had a couple
rough
games.
They've struggled a couple times, but I'm gonna go away from that.
Okay. So
I think Iowa at number 3 with their undefeated record, and Notre Dame at number 4. With Oklahoma and Michigan State creeping pretty close. Michigan State, I know that they lost to a 3-6 at the time, 3-6 Nebraska team. But
they had the best win.
But they had the best win.
As of now, they had the best win.
As of now, they beat the number 3
undefeated
team. Clemson beat the number 4 team, so they don't even have the best win. I don't know, man. Like I said, there was multiple people putting Oklahoma and Michigan State as those number 3 and number 4 spots.
I think
maybe you slide a Michigan State in there at number 4, but that would be a stretch.
If you ask me, Michigan State should be ahead of Oklahoma because Oklahoma's schedule has not been that tough. And their one big win is Baylor,
and
that's their one.
Michigan State
win.
They beat Oregon, who's on fire right now, and they beat Ohio State, obviously, but Oklahoma kind of got beat up by Texas.
Yeah.
Michigan State lost by 1 point to Nebraska in a crazy game.
And Notre Dame killed Texas.
Yeah.
So to me, you'd be doing a huge disservice to college football if you put Oklahoma in there. Even in the top, I don't even think Oklahoma should be in the top 10, personally, because I don't think they're gonna be that good. I don't think they're gonna win next week.
Well, and I guess I didn't really know how serious Baker Mayfield's injury. The concussion, I think it was a head injury.
You lost 5 games in to a Texas team who's terrible. So
Michigan State lost like 7 or 8 games in.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
9 games in.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to that every time because I just don't think. I don't think Oklahoma should be there. But so the rest of the AP,
no one knows who's going to be there or what's going on. This season's just insane.
The rest of the top 9, I mean, from 7, 8, 9, we still have the same 3. We have Baylor, Ohio State, Oklahoma State at 7, 8, 9. Now, here's what gets crazy for me at 10, 11, 12. Now, Florida, with their slight win, I think they're going to drop 4 spots to number 12. I think you're going to have North Carolina come in at number 11. I think you have Stanford coming in at number 10. Because guess what? Stanford, believe it or not, still has a shot to make the playoff, even as a 2-loss Pac-12 championship team. I don't think it'll happen, but they have, as far as a 2-loss team, they're the only team with a shot to make it. Because that Big 12 scenario, TCU wins next week, and Oklahoma State wins next week. Big 12's out.
Who wins the Big 12?
Nobody.
Literally. Nobody.
Everybody ties in the Big 12. There's no chance.
There would be 4 teams tied.
Give it to the no-win Kansas.
They lost 49-0.
They're 0-11.
That might be like the worst team ever, man. Although they only lost to TCU by 6 points.
But you gotta throw Navy in there somewhere too. Where's Navy come in?
Do they beat Houston this week? Do they win that conference championship? Then where do you put them?
Navy has a chance to hop in the top 10. I think
actually I know exactly where you would put them. You would put them in a New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah.
And that's it, because they're not going to jump up.
So a lot of things can happen. Let's take a look at our games next week, because a lot of our games this next week are going to decide the playoff for one. It'll make a clearer picture.
It will.
But I don't
before
think it's
championship week, because man, they keep talking. When I'm listening to things and reading things, committee is just big on the conference champions.
Not only that, but they're big on Oklahoma right now.
And
they are big on
Oklahoma. They think Oklahoma's going to win the Big 12, and that could throw a monkey wrench into things.
Maybe a soccer wrench.
Yeah, that's true. But with last year, all the teams that made it were conference champions.
Yeah.
But there was, an undefeated and 3 one-loss teams. It's not going to be like that this year.
You got Notre Dame, who doesn't have a conference championship.
And I know, but they could potentially get screwed because of that.
But would you throw a 2-loss Pac-12 team in if they beat Notre Dame? Would you throw a 2-loss Pac-12 team in there?
Oh,
would you
I don't know.
Would you have an Ohio State get in there because they have 1 loss to another team who's in the playoff?
I mentioned that last week.
You just don't know. Everything is so up in the air right now, which is why I freaking love college
Florida
football.
State beats Florida this week. Florida beats Alabama. Get them out.
There goes SEC.
It'll be a little bit more fun when the college football playoff rankings come out, which I don't know that they'll be that much different than either what we put or
AP.
But it's been so crazy. I mean, last year TCU was number 3 and they booted them to 6.
But right now, everybody knows right now the next week is going to decide everything. Well, not everything, but next week is going to be a huge decider moving forward, because you're going to take at least 3 teams out of the running this week if they lose. So next week we got Navy at Houston. Houston just got the first loss. I think Houston's done.
That's more of like
Navy's done.
Who's going to be in a New Year's Six bowl.
Exactly.
Right there.
Who do you got in that game? Navy or Houston?
Navy.
I'm taking Navy.
If Houston was undefeated, I would take them because I would want them to keep winning and staying undefeated. But I like Navy. I like Navy's coach. I like their quarterbacks. He broke the touchdown record.
Yeah.
His rushing touchdown record or whatever.
I got Navy.
Awesome.
Go Navy.
Okay.
Baylor at TCU. No Boykin. No, what's his name, wide receiver? Dotson. And possibly on their third string QB, T. Johnson. I don't know what the backup is. He hurt. I have no idea. I don't think if he doesn't play, they're on the third string quarterback who looked pretty good.
And actually, something that we didn't mention was Connor Cook did not play for Michigan State. They had 2 backup quarterbacks.
He did, and they played O'Connor and Terry, and they both looked really good.
They were both pretty good. Anyway,
so they beat Ohio State with 2 backups.
That was just a side note.
Okay, Baylor, TCU, who you got?
Dude, I don't know, because Baylor has looked so good to me at times, but then when they played Oklahoma, they were just terrible.
This was a shootout last year.
I actually think that Baylor's gonna win.
Okay, Jimmy's got Baylor. I'm going to pick TCU.
I know you're going TCU.
Only because I really want to throw a wrench in the Big 12. Because then they're both going to have 2 losses.
To have 4 Big 12 teams all with 2 losses. Literally, who would their champion be?
Nobody
We'd
wins.
have to do some
Nobody
serious
wins.
research
Nobody
on who beat
wins.
who and
Ohio State at Michigan. At the big house. We're going to the big. What's going to happen?
Watching both of these teams play yesterday, where they're at this point in the season, I think Michigan could beat them by 2 touchdowns.
Take Michigan?
I'm taking Michigan. I don't know that they'll beat them by 2 touchdowns. I just think that the way they play. And did you see the video of Harbaugh freaking out yesterday?
Yes. Harbaugh
He took
freaking
off
out.
his puffy coat.
Yeah, Harbaugh's
It's
pissed.
just hilarious.
Khaki Harbaugh's going to win against Ohio State. And here's why. They are bummed about their loss. They are bitching hardcore right now. Ezekiel Elliott was giving crap to the coaches. I don't think he's going to have a good game next year. Next week.
Everybody's at, yeah.
They're just whining and complaining instead of saying, you know what, we're going to come out next week. And it's all in our hands right now. We're the ones who can decide our destiny.
Instead of saying, you know, we had a tough game in, with bad weather for most of the game or some of the game, and we have had such a good winning streak that you're not always going to play your best. Something bad's going to happen, or it's going to be
23
tough.
games in a row,
Yeah.
chopped.
Instead of just being like, you know what, we stumbled.
Yeah.
They're all bitching and
They're
complaining,
complaining, they're whining.
and
Bunch of crybabies.
it's like you don't just get what you want. You have to work for it, and they haven't worked for it all season. That's why they've only won by 2 touchdowns a touchdown against Indiana,
Yeah.
and 2 touchdowns against Minnesota.
They're not. I don't think they're as good as everyone thinks they are. Even with an undefeated season, their toughest opponent this year was Michigan State.
And they lost.
UCLA at USC. Now this is a huge game. Pac-12. USC just got their butt whooped. Who's gonna win? Rosen, or what's his name? Kessler.
Literally, USC has gone up and down. Like, either they play awesome or they play terrible.
They get their butts kicked, they come back and they win big.
Yeah. UCLA has been pretty consistent.
Mhm.
I don't know, man. I'll take UCLA, I
I'm
guess.
taking UCLA too. I think UCLA. Now I'm gonna change that. I'm taking USC because it's at
Just to go against me, or what?
Well, it's at USC.
Yeah, but they're in the same spot.
Go USC.
They're both in LA.
USC's gonna win.
Well, I guess
I
USC's
want.
not in LA, but it's
I
the
want-
same area.
I want UCLA to win. But I just don't think they're gonna win. I think Kessler's gonna come out. They're gonna come out pissed and they're gonna win that game because they have. The last time they got their asses kicked, they came out and they won big. So USC's gonna win against UCLA at home.
Okay.
North Carolina goes to NC State. Now a lot of people think it's not a big game, but NC State, once again,
NC State is pretty decent.
they're not a bad team. North Carolina struggled in a lot of their games this season.
And it's an in-state rival.
Now I know I've talked a lot about North Carolina and how much I want them to be up there. I think NC State's gonna win this game.
I almost do too. You know what? I'll put UNC for one to go against you because that's fun, and 2 because North Carolina. I think that where they're sitting now, with they went in the Coastal Division or whatever it is, and now they're gonna play Clemson.
Yep.
They have their eyes on the prize now.
Yeah.
They think that now they legitimately have a chance.
Yeah.
No one's counted. Yeah, everybody's been counting them out. I think that they're going to be coming fired up, show what they got, get ready for Clemson.
Even if the playoff committee doesn't give them love this week, I think they're gonna come out on fire against NC State. I'm just picking an upset because it's fun.
And that's what happens on rivalry week.
Rivalry week. Rivalry week.
Desmond,
Strong enunciation. Desmond, you win. Next game, number 6. We got Alabama at Auburn. Number 2 team in the country,
the Iron
Alabama.
Bowl.
I still will say they are overrated because who have they played in the top 25 right now? Well,
Ole Miss, but they lost.
but LSU, did they
LSU
drop out of the AP?
They might.
I can't remember.
I didn't look that deep.
But Mississippi State was still in the AP. I didn't write it in.
That
I think Mississippi State was still in the AP, which they probably shouldn't be. They're 8-3. But either way, they lost to the one legitimate team that's in the top 25, which is still questionable.
Well, they beat Wisconsin, but Wisconsin lost.
Wisconsin's out. So, Alabama at Auburn. Who you got?
Alabama's going to win.
Bama's going to win. I think Bama will win too, and I think
I hope that it's a pretty close, decent game, though. The Iron Bowl is usually pretty intriguing. Maybe, quite possibly, one of my favorite plays of all time in college football was when they 109-yard field goal miss.
Awesome. Florida State at Florida. Man, I'm taking Florida State. The way Florida has looked against Vandy and the way Florida has looked against FAU, Florida, McElwain's got a lot of fire under their ass. If he doesn't, and if they don't like to fire themselves, if they're dead fish on ice again, Florida State's going to kill them. They're going to win by at least 17 points.
McElwain's a good coach. I think that's why that they are where they are right now. But I think Florida State's going to beat them. I know it's at Florida, but that's
Adam, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I don't think Florida is as good. Like I said, I think they're going to drop this week, and I think they're going to lose to Florida State, and I think they're going to get wiped up by Alabama.
If you look at Florida,
pisses me off.
If you look at Florida State's losses, they lost to a bad record-wise Georgia Tech team on a blocked field goal taken back for a touchdown, and then they lost to Clemson, which was a very, very good game.
I wish they would have played Notre Dame this year. That would have
Yeah, but Golson could not transfer to a team that Notre Dame was playing this year.
I know. I just wish they would have.
Because they were talking about Texas, and he couldn't have done that because they played Notre Dame.
Then we have...
Speaking of
Notre Dame, at Stanford. They're going to Stanford.
That's a good game.
This is going to be a good one. This not only has playoff implications, but this has Heisman implications for McCaffrey.
Stanford's going to win. Stanford is going to win. I'm calling it.
I got Stanford in that game too, and I think McCaffrey is going to return either a punt or a kickoff in that game at Stanford. He did it last night. He's just an explosive guy. He's patient, but when he doesn't need to be patient, he's explosive. When he knows that I'm a lot faster than my linemen, I can't wait for them to get out in front of me, I'm going to go, he will go. And right now, he's my number 2 in the Heisman race, which we'll talk about in a second as well. So Stanford wins that game. Notre Dame, sorry, Booty.
Sorry, brother, but...
I'm not sorry at all.
Sorry, I'm not sorry.
Last game, 2 games left. I didn't put number 10 on the list. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State.
Bedlam, huh?
In Stillwater. They lost in Stillwater this week. Next week, is Gundy going to fire him up against Oklahoma and Bob Stoops to win that game and screw over the entire Big 12?
And when that game...
Because if Oklahoma State wins, they win the Big 12.
That's true.
Because they'd be a one-loss team.
That is true.
So this is the Big 12 championship right here.
And also, I mean, there's still 2 games left for those teams. Because they play...
Baylor still has Texas.
Yeah, they play on championship week. It's just a regular season week for them.
Yeah.
I do think that the winner of this game will be the conference champion.
So we got Baylor TCU. If Baylor wins, Baylor's got 1 loss.
I think Oklahoma's going to win. Unfortunately, I like Oklahoma State. I want Oklahoma State to win. But I just don't think that they're going to. And I know that you're going to put that...
I'm picking Oklahoma State. I really hope... This is just hoping. I
really hope that they do too. But I think Oklahoma is going to win.
Okay. Last one.
You're going to put it, huh? You got to pick it.
Iowa. We haven't picked a Nebraska game in a while. I'm putting Iowa at Nebraska. We're picking 10 games this week. This is the only time we picked this many games. You know my pick. Because we never
pick against Nebraska, so obviously I'm going to pick Nebraska.
We have momentum. We got to see Iowa play this week in the film. We got to watch them live.
I've never been on obviously I'm gonna pick Nebraska every game. I think Nebraska's gonna win every game, whether we're playing the number 1 team and we're having a bad year. I mean, we beat Michigan State.
We did.
A lot of people have been talking online and in person, yeah, I really think we're gonna win. Yeah, Iowa sucks, or yeah, we're gonna beat them. I don't like to do this because I like to wait until the game is over with, and then if you win, then you can say something. So I've been keeping my mouth shut. So I pick Nebraska, yes, but I'm just gonna wait.
Here's the thing: Nebraska at home. This is not. I think we're still gonna make a bowl game at 5-7 if we lose.
They are
we go
saying
6-6.
with how the way this year's gone, that there's potentially a couple 5-win teams that could make a bowl game, and I do think that we would.
If we go 6-6, for sure we make a bowl game. We're bowl eligible, which would be sweet. It's been a crappy year for Nebraska and their fans, including us. But this game right here, Nebraska, Iowa, this is one of those games where there's so much crap, and where I was at before coming here, the lady was wearing 2 Iowa wristbands, and Brett and I were talking about Nebraska-Iowa game, and she's like, "Oh, I disagree." Yada yada. We were talking crap back and forth. It's kind of fun. I think it's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be another nail biter for Nebraska, and I think we come out.
Why do you think we played the "This Is a War" song?
Yes,
next
week is going to be a war for all these teams because there's a lot of playoff implications for North Carolina, for Alabama, for Florida, for Michigan State, for Baylor, TCU. I mean, there's just so many implications next week in every single game. Oh, Oklahoma State, Stanford, Notre Dame. It's a war. It's going to be next week. Every
one
game
thing I will say about
equally important.
Well, the one thing I will say about the Iowa-Nebraska game, we saw how, things weren't going very great this season, and we had an opportunity to play a top 10 team, and the fans it was a home game. Fans were going nuts because you want to be a top 10 team even if you're having a down year. And place was rocking. Players got jacked up for it. Like, let's go beat a top 10 team. And we did. And I think it'll be even more so with this game because it's Nebraska against Iowa. The players know how much the fan bases hate each other.
For those of you that don't know, Nebraska and Iowa, the 2 states are next to each other. Just in case you.
If you're watching in other states,
it's a cross-state rivalry.
But
it's not as close as Iowa State.
Players are just going to be jacked up for this. I mean, yeah, you do need to win to be in a bowl game for sure. But Iowa's going to be jacked up too. They want an undefeated season. They want to be in the playoff. It's going to be crazy.
And at this point, Iowa deserves to be where they're at. But I think we're going to screw them over. I think we're going to beat them. You're going to have 2 teams in the Big Ten Championship that lost to Nebraska.
That would be awesome.
It's going to be so cool. But Michigan State, to me, is going to have the upper hand over Iowa because I think Michigan State's a better team over Iowa, if that happens. So we're both picking Nebraska, of course. Go Big Red.
It'll be fun.
Really, really open.
It'll be fun. It's the day after Thanksgiving. You can sit back and relax.
Next week's going to be awesome. Next week is going to be such a Friday, Saturday. I'm planning on doing nothing but sitting on the couch, watching football. Maybe doing some Black Friday shopping.
That's what I'll be doing on Friday. I will have to turn around and work on Saturday.
But I will be home before the Husker game, and it's going to be exciting.
I am glad that the last couple of years it's been an 11 o'clock game and it's 2:30 this week.
Thank you, Iowa, for the 2:30 game.
Actually, thank you. It really was.
That's actually all you.
It was you, and it was us beating Michigan State that gave us that 2:30 ABC game.
So thank you, Michigan State, and thank you, refs, and thank you, Iowa, and I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. Another crazy week in college football. A lot more.
About to get crazier, I'm sure.
You got anything else?
No.
All right. Well,
Go Big Red.
As usual, if you don't like what we say, that's 2 bags. We're just 2 average guys with opinions. Have a good week, everybody.
We'll see you on Tuesday.